You are listening to episode number 118 of Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast, the top 5 teacher podcasts in 2024. Want some new podcasts to listen to for your best life inside and outside of teaching this year? I'm sharing my favorites today, and you do not want to miss it. Welcome to Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Sorensen, a former teacher, current homeschool mom, and certified life coach who loves helping other teachers and homeschool parents. I'm also a recovering do-it-aller, and if you're listening, I have a sense that maybe you are too. I've been on a mental health journey for the last few years, ever since I ended up in the emergency room after my worst panic attack ever in 2019, and you'll hear more about that when you listen to the podcast. After that, I found life coaching, and it has made the biggest difference in my life than anything else. And then in 2021, we surveyed our followers to hear about their biggest struggles. I realized I wanted to serve our people in a more holistic way and expand beyond printables by sharing all the life coaching tools that has supported me so much. Because let's face it, you wear a lot of different hats every single day, and it often leaves you feeling like you aren't fully showing up in any of those roles. I believe that you don't have to choose between being a wife, teacher, or mom, or whatever the equivalent roles are for you. You can do it all with a little support and intentional planning. This podcast is a way for you to soak up practical tips and strategies on the go so that you can reduce your overwhelm and begin enjoying life again. Life is meant to be enjoyed. So my guests and I will be here cheering you on and speaking on topics that will help you up-level your mindset, get more in tune with yourself and your needs, to feel inspired with creative ideas, and inspiration to take on each day with joy and ease. Whether you're at your wit's end and overwhelmed and burnout, or just need some support in achieving your next goal, I am here to support you living your best teacher life right here on Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so that you never miss an episode. And if you want even more support, I would love to be your life coach. Head on over to wifeteachermommy.com/club to learn more. Okay, welcome to Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast. Whether you are a brand new listener or you've been here since episode 1 or anywhere in between, I am just so grateful that you chose to plug in your earbuds and listen to me today. Or if you're listening on YouTube, which is a very small percentage of our audience, but I'm even more excited you're here because I do hope that we start seeing some more traction over there. So if you love listening, want to watch, these podcasts are on YouTube as well. If not, you can totally still keep listening on whatever podcast platform that you prefer. Okay, I am so excited for 2024, and today we're talking all about favorite podcasts in 2024. But before we dive into that, I want to again mention, in case you missed it, our vision board challenge that we are doing next week if you are listening to this as this episode goes live. Now, I'm so excited about this challenge. I've talked about vision boards a lot and how they have helped me to do some amazing things, such as, run this company, become certified as a life coach. They've helped me with fitness goals. They've helped me with hitting all the seller milestones on Teachers Pay Teachers and building a membership and getting offered a book deal and keeping on going with goals, even when they weren't going exactly where I wanted them. It kept me in the momentum of doing them. And I just really believe in the power of vision boards, and I talked a lot about that on last week's episode. You will definitely want to check that out. I share lots of information and how you can get started on that episode. But for even more support, I'd really just recommend that you join us at our vision board challenge. And let me tell you a little bit about how that's going to work each day. So on the first day, I'm going to be talking all about the science behind vision boards and how to make them work for you. And it's not just about putting a bunch of pretty pictures up on a board. It's really about knowing exactly what to put up there and why it's leading you towards your goals and the right thoughts you want to think towards getting there. We're going to talk about the science of why it works and really dive into that a little bit more than we have on the podcast. And we're going to have live coaching. I forgot to mention that at the end of each day, we're going to have coaching where anybody can raise their hand, come on, get coached. You can also ask your questions in the chat. It's going to be great. On day 2, we're going to talk about what to put on your vision board. Like I said, it's not just a bunch of pretty pictures. We're going to talk about how you can actually visualize each thing. It's not just like a written to-do list, but like really getting clear on the visuals, what it will look like, what thoughts you need to think to get there, how to visualize that, and how you can utilize your included vision board toolkit to make putting it together a total breeze. And then on day 3, we're going to talk about not just the putting together the vision board, but putting it together is a great process for getting clear on everything. But the real magic is in actually using it to manifest your dream life. So once it's put together, we'll talk about how you can utilize it each day, how to create a habit that's not overwhelming, but that's going to help you to continue to make progress towards making those things a reality. And celebrating your wins all along the way as you start seeing the things that were once just visualized on your vision board actually come to life. It's really quite exciting, but that's not all you're going to get either. There are also some amazing bonuses you'll get. Like I mentioned, there's an included vision board toolkit where you're going to get like a print and go. Like if you just want to make it super easy and utilize what we have for you. There's also a Canva template to make it so you can customize what we created. We're also going to be taking suggestions from those who join the challenge early to add those to the vision board toolkit as well. So you're going to want to join as soon as you can. It's going to be such a great time. And there's a pop-up Facebook group, like I mentioned. You're going to get continued support, not just on the calls, but like in the Facebook group. We'll answer questions. You'll connect with other educators who are doing it. We'll encourage, like there'll be rewards and prizes for those who share pictures of their completed vision board for extra accountability and fun and to get inspiration and ideas from others. So going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get lifetime access so you can listen to it or watch it anytime that you need to. There will be a private podcast version so you can listen to it on the go. So if you attend live, but just needed a little refresher in like 6 months, you'll still have that. You'll also get our printable and Google Slides version of our teacher planner, which has my full goal setting process in there. So you'll not only be able to visualize your goals, but really break them down and everything utilizing the planner and planning day in and day out, structuring your time and time management to make the things happen, right? And that's why you'll also get access to the planner workshop we did last year. You'll get the replay to that, and the audio will go on the Vision Board private podcast. So you'll be able to listen to that on the go too. The total value of all of it is $211, and we're only charging $15 for the Vision Board Challenge. So you can go to wifeteachermommy.com/Vision Board Challenge to check it out. We're super excited to have this challenge. I would love for you to join me. Okay, so another thing in 2024 you might love is some new podcasts to listen to, right? So today we're focused on some other amazing shows that can help you to live your best life inside and outside of teaching. So I was invited to join this really fun collaborative effort, this podcast episode. Sierra Harris put this together. You might recognize her from Educate and Rejuvenate Summer 2023 when she spoke about reading comprehension, the science of reading. She's awesome. And she now has a podcast all about literacy. So this episode, she chose some amazing podcasters to join this group. And we're coming together to share about each other and the amazing work that each of these other podcasters is doing. I feel like you can never be subscribed to enough podcasts, and you can always pick and choose the episodes that sound like they are the most applicable to you and your current needs. And that's what I love about the podcasts that I follow. So let's start with Sierra's podcast. Now, for each podcast, I'm going to share their trailer, which is kind of like the commercial where you kind of get a little snip of what their podcast is about, the goals of the podcast. And then I'll just share a little bit about the podcast too, what I love about it, and a recommended episode to start with. So here is Sierra's trailer for the Literacy Lounge.
Are you an elementary school teacher on a mission to ignite a love of reading in your students? Are you looking for actionable strategies to supercharge comprehension in your classroom? Well, welcome to the Literacy Lounge, where you'll accomplish this and so much more. Hi, friends. I'm your host, Sierra Harris, a former elementary school teacher turned reading coach, and I have spent the last decade and more perfecting my reading instruction to help other teachers do the exact same. And I know how many moving parts come with teaching literacy and how quickly it can lead to frustration. So the Literacy Lounge is here to take the guesswork out of your planning so you can best serve your students. Each week, I will give you the exact resources and motivation that you need to confidently teach literacy skills. We'll cover topics such as phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and even the science of reading. Plus, all the up-to-date research that goes along with it. Occasionally, I'll also be joined by guest experts who will share their literacy knowledge with you too. As a teacher, I know your time is limited, which is why each episode will be created with you in mind. You'll walk away with actionable strategies to take straight back to the classroom and the confidence to implement them. If you have a specific topic request for future episodes, you can always send me a DM on Instagram @Sierra Harris Teaching. Also, show notes And more helpful resources can be found at www.sierraharristeaching.com. Friends, I cannot wait to uncover the magic of reading with you. I'll meet you inside the show.
Okay, aren't these trailers so fun? So I love her podcast, The Literacy Lounge. It's really like a go-to podcast for elementary school teachers and homeschool parents who want to master teaching literacy and nurture a love of reading. And I just love how the tips and tricks that she shares are really useful and they're really actionable, like easy for you to be able to implement and use, from the science of reading to teaching strategies. And wherever you are on your teaching journey, you'll find something relevant to you as well. So where I would recommend starting with Sierra's podcast is episode 1. It is called Reading Consumption versus Reading Comprehension. Now, in this episode, here's the description of the episode. She says, have you ever had a student who reads like the wind but struggles to remember anything from the text? Or if they do remember anything, they're simply regurgitating facts and details. This is a case of reading consumption versus reading comprehension, and it's time to unpack the reasons behind it. True comprehension goes beyond remembering and repeating. It involves understanding the text on a deeper level, making inferences, connections, and analysis. So this episode is going to really help you to be able to help your kids really comprehend their reading and not just regurgitate. So I really recommend checking that out. Okay, so the first podcast I recommend is The Literacy Lounge with Sierra Harris. Now let's move on to our next episode, which is another awesome literacy-focused podcast. It is called The Literacy Dive with Megan Polk. And you might recognize Megan. She has been on the podcast before, and she was part of our 2022 Educate and Rejuvenate. So it's been a minute, but she is awesome. So let's play the trailer to her podcast.
If you are an upper elementary teacher and teach ELA, we are about to become literacy besties. My name is Megan from The Literacy Dive, and I am the host of The Literacy Dive podcast. It's true, I basically eat, sleep, and breathe all things literacy. Despite my favorite subject being math, literacy was the area my students needed the most support. So I shifted my intention, focus, training, and learning to basically become literacy obsessed and begin creating the most valuable experiences for them. I love supporting teachers and parents by providing actionable tips and step-by-step strategies to help you grow strong and confident as an educator and close the literacy gaps. In one word, I would describe my approaches as simple, as I want you and your students to experience success. Each Monday, you will hear as I or my guest share more on relevant hot topics, literacy best practices, or reading and writing strategies that work. You can expect to leave feeling eager, inspired, and feeling better than you came. Reading and writing are my jam, and whether you're listening on this podcast, following me on Instagram, or using resources from my TPT store or my writing membership, The Daily Writing Disguise, I will serve you the best way I know how. If you are ready to nerd out about writing strategies, reading comprehension, genres, and more, let's dive in.
Okay, and I just love this podcast because Megan's love of reading and teaching really shine through in her podcast. She's such a literacy lover, and she shares such great tips, engaging ideas, and actionable examples that you can use to close the gap and lead confidently with best teaching practices. And the other thing that really stands out about her podcast is she loves just keeping things simple so you can implement what you learn on her show as soon as tomorrow. So super cool. An episode I would recommend starting with the Literacy Dive would be episode 144, which is called Boost Daily Reading and Writing Excitement with a Spontaneous Routine. And I was just really drawn to that one. I'm like, spontaneous routine? That got me like super curious. So here's what she had to say about this episode. So she says, as teachers, we always create and develop lessons that focus on practicing and mastering literacy skills, but rarely develop ways that spark an initial love for literacy. I'm sharing 2 routines to spontaneously incorporate daily reading and writing in a way that increases student excitement and engagement with literacy. These ideas are fun, creative, and will for sure get your students begging to read and write. If so, this episode is for you. So you'll get 2 spontaneous routines, the structure, expectations, and benefit of it, and how to make it work, and general tips for implementing each routine. So love it. Okay, let's get to the third recommended podcast that I cannot wait to share with you. So this podcast is called Second Story Window, and it is hosted by my really good friends, and they are sisters. It is hosted by Emily Stevenson and Heidi Van Natter. They are expert teachers. They are just so good at everything they do, and their curriculum is just like, honestly, their design is just so amazing. I love just everything they do. So I could just ramble on about them all day. They are amazing, and I love what they do on the show. The really fun thing about their show is that it is co-hosted. So you really get that like back and forth, like you're really listening in on some teacher besties in their conversation. And they have some really fun like segments that they do, like the beginning and ends of their episodes. You'll have to listen to it to see what I'm talking about. But let's play their trailer so you can check it out.
Welcome to Teacher Approved. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Emily. We're two sisters with a passion for helping teachers work smarter, not harder.
You may know us from our website, Second Story Window. With over 2 decades of teaching experience under our belt, we know how rewarding, yet challenging teaching can be.
We know your to-do list is long, and sometimes the support you receive falls very short. That's why we're dedicated to designing research-based resources and sharing strategies that have been tested and teacher approved.
We're so excited to add this podcast to our library of resources that will help teachers like you overcome the overwhelm of teaching. You can count on us to be here each week with tips, strategies, inspiration, and plenty of real talk about teaching.
Be sure to join the Teacher Approved Facebook group and connect with us on Instagram at Second Story Window. That's with the 2. We'd love to know which topics you'd like to hear about on the podcast.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Thanks for being here.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, so another thing I mentioned that I love about their show, or that I haven't mentioned, I love that they focus on research-based and teacher-approved strategies. So everything they talk about has been used and tested in the classroom, and they just want to make sure that you can be more efficient and effective than ever. And it's not focused on any specific subject. It's really like any teacher could listen to and learn from this. So you get like weekly bite-sized professional development that you can apply to your classroom today. And their tagline, I also love it. It's elevate what matters and simplify the rest. The other thing I want to celebrate with Heidi and Emily is that they did recently hit 100 episodes on their podcast, which, as I know, that's just such a commitment to podcasting. And episode 99 is the one I'm going to share with you. And that is called Get Students Engaged with 3 Types of Active Participation Strategies. Here's what Heidi and Emily had to say about this episode. They said, when creating lessons and activities, we're always striving for them to be engaging. Participate in class discussions, are invested in peer relationships, and are willing to meet your behavior expectations. In this episode, Emily and Heidi share ways to increase student engagement with 3 types of active participation strategies. We know that student engagement is dependent on a balance between structure and novelty, which is why we provide examples that are fun for students while still maintaining our expectations. I just love that. You are going to love everything about the Teacher Approved podcast. So be sure to check it out and subscribe. Okay, and the final podcast that I cannot wait to recommend to you is the Resilient Teacher podcast with Brittany Blackwell. So let's check out her trailer.
Hey, teacher friend, if you are feeling like your teaching career has become this relentless cycle of stress and exhaustion and frustration, if you're struggling to balance the demands of your profession with your personal well-being, and if the endless to-dos just seem to overshadow the joy of teaching, if you're seeking ways to reignite your passion, to feel energized rather than drained by your work, and to find effective strategies to sustain your career in teaching while living your best life inside and outside of the classroom, you are in the right place. Welcome to the Resilient Teacher Podcast. My name is Brittany. I'm your host, a special educator at heart, instructional coach, and a mom/bonus mom of 5 kids. But more than that, I'm someone who's been where you are right now. I'm super passionate about helping teachers like you break free from the burnout cycle once and for all. In this podcast, we'll explore actionable tips, sustainable strategies, digital tools to automate the mundane tasks of teaching, and discuss the hot topics in teacher burnout. Our goal? To transform your experience from chaos to confidence. I have been exactly where you are now, and that's why here we believe in uplifting one another to heal the system from the inside out. Join us each week on the Resilient Teacher Podcast as we reshape our teaching experiences and balance our professional passion with personal peace. And let me remind you that you too are a resilient teacher.
Okay, and I love Brittany, as you've heard recently. She was just at our Winter Educate and Rejuvenate event talking all about AI. We've been on each other's podcasts. We've aired shows for each other on our podcasts and participated in each other's events. And what I love is our work really does kind of go really well together. Like if you love the life balance and things that I talk about here on Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast, you're going to love what she shares over on the Resilient Teacher podcast as well. She's just really great with teacher burnout, sustainability with your career inside and outside the classroom, tips and strategies for uplifting your life and just being a resilient teacher. So I love that. Okay, the episode I'm going to share for Brittany's podcast is episode 74, and that is teacher workload or workaholism. What's the real issue? And here's what Brittany had to say about this episode. Are you a teacher who finds themselves burning the midnight oil, grading papers, and crafting lesson plans after a long day of school officially ends? If so, rest assured you're not alone. In the world of education, it's all too common to unintentionally become the teacher who takes work home, spending precious hours each night immersed in grading or planning. It wasn't your initial career plans, was it? My friend Jen Manley said it best. Teachers working outside of their contract hours is not a time management issue. It is a workload issue. It is not about lacking time management skills. It is about the ever-increasing workload that simply doesn't fit into the time management frameworks. Recent statistics show a stark reality. 4 out of 5 teachers report that their workload has increased, a fundamental shift. And that is why in this episode, we're here to explore why teachers often become workaholics, how to identify if you're one of them, and most importantly, the actionable steps you can take today to reclaim your work-life balance and reignite your passion for teaching, even amidst the rising demands and responsibilities. Okay, so I love all these podcasts. I love Brittany Blackwell's podcast, the Resilient Teacher podcast, Ellie and Heidi's podcast, the Teacher Approved podcast, Megan Polk's podcast, The Literacy Dive, and Sierra Harris's podcast, The Literacy Lounge. These are all just incredible podcasts that I can't wait for you to check out. Of course, last but not least, of the 5 recommended podcasts is right where you are, Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast. And you're already here, but in case you are new here, I am going to play our trailer as well. And another reason I'm going to play it is because we actually updated the trailer for this episode, because when I first started the podcast, it was kind of a range of teaching resources, different teaching ideas, strategies, all the things. And we really kind of have honed in our focus a little bit more to be really focused on your mindset, your mental health, work-life balance, intentional scheduling, goal setting, things that I talk about as a life coach and how they pertain to you as a teacher or homeschool parent. So kind of funneled it in a little bit more to niched it in, I guess you could say, got a little more specific about what we talk about here. So I'm going to share the updated trailer with you now. Welcome to Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast. I'm your host, Kelsey Sorensen, a former teacher, current homeschool mom, and certified life coach who loves helping other teachers and homeschool parents. I'm also a recovering do-it-aller, and if you're listening, I have a sense that maybe you are too. I've been on a mental health journey for the last few years, ever since I ended up in the emergency room after my worst panic attack ever in 2019, and you'll hear more about that when you listen to the podcast. After that, I found life coaching, and it has made the biggest difference in my life than anything else. And then in 2021, we surveyed our followers to hear about their biggest struggles. I realized I wanted to serve our people in a more holistic way and expand beyond printables by sharing all the life coaching tools that has supported me so much. Because let's face it, you wear a lot of different hats every single day, and it often leaves you feeling like you aren't fully showing up in any of those roles. I believe that you don't have to choose between being a wife, teacher, or mom, or whatever the equivalent roles are for you. You can do it all with a little support and intentional planning. This podcast is a way for you to soak up practical tips and strategies on the go so that you can reduce your overwhelm and begin enjoying life again. Life is meant to be enjoyed. So my guests and I will be here cheering you on and speaking on topics that will help you up-level your mindset, get more in tune with yourself and your needs, to feel inspired with creative ideas, and inspiration to take on each day with joy and ease. Whether you're at your wit's end and overwhelmed and burnout, or just needing some support in achieving your next goal, I am here to support you living your best teacher life right here on Wife Teacher Mommy, the podcast. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so that you never miss an episode. And if you want even more support, I would love to be your life coach. Head on over to wifeteachermommy.com/club to learn more. So excited that we finally got that updated and that this collaboration kind of made me realize, oh, hey, I need to update that. Now, a recommended episode for my show that we haven't replayed yet that I'd really recommend you go back and check out would be episode 67, which is how to be confident as a teacher. Now, I've realized in coaching lately that a lot of people in general just don't feel very confident in themselves, especially when something is new to them. So in this episode, we talk about the two different types of confidence, self-confidence and confidence in our abilities, and how we can foster both. I would really recommend going back and listening to episode 67 of Wife, Teacher, Mommy, the podcast, How to Be Confident as a Teacher if you haven't yet. We also have some awesome episodes coming up too. So if you haven't yet, hit subscribe right here on Wife, Teacher, Mommy, the podcast so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. We have a full coaching call with coaching. I got permission to share the actual coaching clip, which is rare, coming up really soon. And it's all about self-care. You're not going to want to miss it. And be sure to subscribe to the other 4 shows as well. The Resilient Teacher podcast, the Literacy Lounge, the Literacy Dive, and the Teacher Approved podcast. You will be well set for 2024 with all 5 of our shows popping up on your podcast player each week. Also, if you are enjoying this podcast, Wife, Teacher, Mommy, the podcast, I'd love if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. It means the world to me when you leave a review. And we're getting, as I'm recording, we're getting so close to 100 reviews. I would really love to hit that number, and it would just make my day to read your review. I personally read each one. So take a screenshot of your review and email it to hello@wifeteachermommy.com, and we will send you a $5 code that you can use in our shop or apply it to your Wife, Teacher, Mommy Club membership, or even if you're listening live, apply it to the Vision Board Challenge. So I would just really appreciate if you just took a moment to do that. Okay, that is it for today. And I want to be clear, that $5 credit, because we did have some confusion about it before, that is for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, and that is something you can do one time. So you're only able to leave a review one time. So if you've done it before and you got that $5 credit, then you've done it. But if you haven't yet, I would love for you to do that. Okay, that is it for today. We will talk next week all about making a schedule that works for you in 2024. Can't wait, and we will talk then.
Thank you for listening to Wife, Teacher, Mommy, the podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And to make your podcast experience even more personalized, I'd love to send you a custom podcast playlist of my top recommended episodes for you that I think will be the most helpful based on where you are in your journey. Simply go to wifeteachermommy.com/podcast quiz and answer a few simple questions. It'll take less than 2 minutes and you'll have your custom playlist sent your way. Plus, you'll get updates when we release new episodes and get an exclusive clip from a coaching call sent to you every single week. So you'll get even more free content to help you live your best life. You've got nothing to lose, so what are you waiting for? Go to wifeteachermommy.com/podcast quiz now.